All right, welcome to another episode of Just Business Talk. Today we are excited to have Basil Muneer AlMasri, founder of White Knight Capital and an MA advisor at Transworld, sharing his expertise on navigating complex deals and mastering corporate matchmaking. Welcome, Basil, to our show. Thank you so much for finding time to be here today.
Thank you so much, Tahir, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. So, Basil, let's jump in straight to corporate matchmaking. You describe your role as corporate matchmaking, which sounds fascinating. Can you elaborate on what that means and how you navigate such diverse responsibilities across White Knight Capital, Transworld, and your consultancy with the government agencies?
Sure. So, corporate matchmaking, or as some call it, business brokerage, is basically when it's basically connecting business owners with investors.
Yeah.
Whether the businesses are looking for growth investment, seeking to expand, or they're just looking for someone to outright buy their business, then we support them in finding the right buyer, strategic investors. And it also works the other way around. Sometimes investors are looking for certain targets in certain sectors and they can't find those. So
Hmm.
we help them in finding uh, suitable companies that fit within their portfolio, and obviously making sure that these companies are profitable, they're investment grade. We sort of try to basically streamline the process between buyers and sellers.
All right. Okay. Great. So basically, how the process works. So the people who wants to sell business, they approach to you, and how do you ensure that you make the right matches? You so use any technology, or you understand the requirement, and how do you see the right opportunities in your database?
So we do rely on technology in certain aspects of basically project management and transaction support, but we do not rely solely on technology in matching the business owners and the investors or buyers. We like
So
to
you
keep
white glove the service. Basically, you actually go and find the right opportunities for them.
exactly. It's more of a tailored service,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we keep the human element. Obviously, that means less volume of transactions, but that I understand there are two business models. We like to minimize the volume and just try to maximize on the value.
The quality, yeah. Okay, so I would like to go back to your journey. So you have an experience with investment strategy. So what brought you in business brokerage industry, and how did you end up in this industry? What's your journey?
So my journey started in investment banking. I interned at M Capital Group in Dubai, in Emirates Financial Towers. Uh, so that's where the selling and buying businesses started,
Mm-hmm.
but that was at a much larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Afterwards, my career took a twist, and I ended up in management consulting and strategy. Uh, but at the same time, I was exposed to feasibilities and, let's say, investment screening.
Hmm.
So these skills and basically my passion for investments somehow led me into mergers and acquisitions, which was to
Okay.
begin with my favorite part of investment banking. Uh, but as you know, being in the business yourself, the large cap deals are overtaken by a few companies, the bulge brackets,
Yeah.
elite boutiques.
It's
So
too saturated, yeah, and especially in Gulf region, there are not many good opportunities in that segment.
exactly, and even if it wasn't or if it weren't, um, there is a huge gap for the smaller and mid cap deals, which could be
Yeah,
leveraged. So that's how I ended up actually with White Knight Capital and partnering with Transworld Business Advisors, focusing on M&A for small and mid cap deals.
Okay. So what is Knight Capital and how does it, how do you work like in the Transworld? So what are these two and what's the difference?
So White Knight Capital is the company I founded.
Hmm.
Uh,
What are the activities of White Knight Capital? What do you do in that?
Basically, there are three verticals, and
Hmm.
I founded the company around 2 years back. So these verticals were very dynamic, trying
Hmm.
to find the sweet spot.
Okay.
What we have on offer right now is basically the fundraising for startups, which is sort of a passion project of mine. So
Hmm.
that's not where the money is, but that's where you get exposed to different mindsets, different people, different industries, and that helps you understand what is shaping the ecosystem in the future.
Hmm. Okay. So
We don't
basically you help startups, tech startups mainly, or small brick and mortar businesses?
uh, brick and mortar are very difficult to fundraise for, but we
Hmm.
do sometimes do growth investors basically seeking.
Yeah.
That's more on Transworld's end. For White Knight Capital, we like to focus on tech mainly.
Okay,
So
mainly tech. And you raise these funds through VCs, seed capital. What are your investment thesis are?
So it could be angel investors, could be VCs. It depends on the startup's requirement actually, because
Right.
some want a lead investor and some prefer someone strategic.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Okay. Great. And in Transworld, you purely take care of the transaction advisory and the brokerage services. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
But
Are
we
you
do
specialized in an industry or you work in cross industry?
no, we're sector agnostic, both White
Hmm.
Knight and Transworld.
Hmm.
So the mergers and acquisitions, both buy side and sell side, are sector agnostic. But I would say, and you would know better, due to industry trends, there's a huge demand nowadays for healthcare, education, manufacturing.
Correct. Yes, yes. There's a big demand, but there are not credible businesses available on a right valuation. So I think I know the market also. It's a tough market. So I'm going to come to the market challenges and all. So I would like to know you coming from advisory and a corporate background to the small and mid market segment. How do you differentiate yourself on daily between a real estate broker or a business advisor or broker? So how do you manage this segment?
I'm glad you asked because
Hmm.
this is the toughest challenge that we face.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it the basically corporate brokerage is kind of a new thing in the region, and
Hmm.
it is it requires some education in the market. It requires a bit of patience, but there is a trend with the investors being more cautious nowadays and more informed.
Hmm.
So even if you look at the statistics, the funds are being deployed, but not at the same pace as before.
Hmm.
So the investors are more financially savvy, and
Yeah,
that helps us communicate and explain where our value is in basically making sure that we are getting them the right businesses, the investment grade businesses, the profitable businesses, with all the regulations and legal aspects being in place. So we do have to communicate that, but it is becoming easier, and it's an exciting time because that actually gives more value for us in what we're doing. We actually have to
yeah,
do more due diligence. We have to do our homework. The transaction is just of higher quality.
yeah. What I think, in my personal opinion, I'm in Dubai for many years now, and I did exits. I bought companies prior to founding Selenibiz. The whole reason I started Selenibiz because I've heard so many horrific stories. The investors, especially people who wanted to buy a business in Dubai, was misguided by the real estate brokers who does not know the legal process, and so many people have lost money and they're still losing money because this market is not regulated. Anybody can start selling and say, okay, you buy this business, and once they buy the business, they end up finding the tax is not paid, they have labor issues, they have this issue, the rent is not paid, there are check bounces, the Ithal Credit Bureau is not correct. There are so many things which real estate broker wouldn't know or would not advise, and they'll just sell the business, take the commission, and leave. And that's giving a lot of bad reputation in this industry, in this segment. Many buyers I meet daily, they're cautious. They heard stories of someone they know, the family who lost the money, and so there's a real pain in this market where companies like Transworld, Selenibis, or other like purely business advisory and brokerage companies has to differentiate the other 50,000 real estate brokers.
So, what would you say the best way is to tackle that? I mean, we can try to educate the market, and we are lucky the investors are becoming more informed. But how do you usually tackle that?
Education. I would recommend anybody who's in the industry. I started the podcast. I'm investing my time and efforts to educate. So everybody should do the same. If you want to stay in this industry and have this fix the problem, I think everybody should start creating social media. So nobody's on social media. I mean, real
Mm,
estate. You see every morning you open an Instagram story, you see a real estate broker hey, selling this, but you will never see a business broker, right?
that's
So
true.
because first of all, there are very few, and the one are there because the deal flow is not so huge. They're barely surviving. They're not doing good, and so there are challenges. And the last, the so there are not companies yet in this market, as you rightly said. It's a new market and it's a growing market. There are no companies who are providing enough deal flow for these advisors to survive and they invest their career. That's the issue with the market, because there are very few people who are coming in. I mean, a bigger market, you earn very good commission. You do one deal in 2 years, you're done, right? So here you have to do a deal every month. So there's a certain, because I founded my company from the market. I knew. So any advisor who joined, first of all, we take very few advisors. The advisor I have, when I took them, I said, I will guarantee you a deal in your first 3 months and a one deal every month if you follow my process. And every advisor who are with us, they're doing one or two deals every month consistently. Just follow the process. So yes, so it's a lack of education towards the advisors. Also, if you see the advisor, like you coming from a corporate world, the what is done in a corporate level is completely different than the small act. You cannot apply that rule book in this industry. This is another challenge. Very few people they know how the small transaction works.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
It's a, it's it's less sophisticated but more complicated in a
More
way.
complicated. Exactly. That's the right way to put it. So yeah, less sophisticated and very complicated. That's exactly the spot on. Yeah, so education is the main thing. So to have the regulation, I don't think regulation is going to come sometime soon. Even as you know, the biggest challenge I made some videos. Maybe this podcast, someone from the authorities will hear. The biggest challenge is when you buy a business, you buy all the liabilities as a company, because it's so difficult to buy only the assets. And usually what happens in UK and in another part of the world, mainly when you acquire a business, you don't buy the company, you just buy the assets, and you set up a different company, so you don't take the previous liabilities of tax liabilities and stuff. But here, because the visas and everything, the lease, everything is tied up with that trade license, so you have no other choice but to buy a trade license. So if not the correct due diligence done on that trade license, that's it. All the liabilities are transferred. So I think there must be some type of scenario where there must be, when someone is buying a company, so they should have an option to transfer everything with a very bare minimum cost on a new entity, or and decide if they want to buy. So currently, the buyer is forced to buy that company also. I think you would agree on this. This is a big challenge in our industry.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge, but also it's fun to navigate for the advisors, I guess. But
Yes, it's fun to navigate, and sometimes it goes wrong. Every day, every deal. I've done 70 deals in last 4 years. Every deal is a unique deal. Every deal from date, I learn something new. Every deal we learn something new. So every deal there is a new challenge, a new problem, new issues. Uh, and another factor is also which needs to be looked at is the post purchase buyer training. That's also a big issue. The buyers, I tell few things to the buyers when they buy the business. Don't do this. Exactly, they do the same. Exactly, every time they end up doing the same. And then after 2 months, they come back. Oh yeah, I want to sell my business. Can you please help me?
more
So this is
more
some of the challenges of the work. So Basil, tell me now, uh, where you see the night capital going. So how do you want to? I'm more curious to know about what do you see the opportunities in that field apart from the business brokerage, fundraising stuff. So where are you seeing this going ahead?
So for White Knight Capital, I think the focus right now is basically on mergers and acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
So we initially we were focusing on both buy and sell side advisory.
Mm-hmm.
Now we focus mainly on buy side, and we partnered with Transworld for the sell side.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of gave us a bigger network,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's it's a large ecosystem. There are so many players. There's only so much you can do by yourself. It's always better to partner, basically,
Yeah,
as we like to
certainly.
say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So we focus on the buy side. Transworld works on the sell side, and then we have the passion project, the fundraising, supporting the ecosystem. Uh, the last vertical is basically staying true to my consulting background, which is basically feasibility studies, project management, uh, the financial modeling aspects, the the boring part, where you gotta stick to your laptop and work on PowerPoint and Excel, and nowadays with Canva, that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So you do the financial modeling as well as your consulting assignments, yeah?
100%. We do
Right.
that.
That's good. That's good. So I think this is another I get to ask a lot. So if ever need help, certainly we know where to go for. So what advice would you give to anybody who's listening this podcast today who want to get into the business brokerage industry? Would you advise them to build their career, and how can they get started?
So I would say the first step is to sort of understand what a business broker is, and understand what we were discussing earlier, the differentiation between uh, real estate brokerage and business brokerage. Actually,
Can someone be both real estate and business broker or no?
they can. They can. I mean, we work on operational real estate, which
Yeah.
is hospitals, schools, polyclinics, even the industrial factories. So those are kind of real estate. If you were in the UK, as you mentioned, if you're buying just the assets, the real assets, then you are a real estate broker. You just have an additional layer. The
Yeah.
additional
Yeah.
layer is where I believe, and you would know better as well, is where our skill sets are basically showing, and that's what the anyone trying to enter the business brokerage world should understand. What do I need to analyze before selling? You should have a foundation. You should know what you're selling.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be selling anything just for the sake of selling. You should actually find the right target, know what you're even if it's, let's say, the business is not profitable. That's fine. You can find the
Yeah.
right buyer for it, but you shouldn't oversell it. You should sell it as it is.
Yeah. And the how do you see the industry is evolving in GCC and Gulf in this particular industry?
I think the going back to the point we discussed about the investors becoming more financially savvy, uh, we are starting to adopt the sort of the Western mindset of wealth generation, which is actually investing in cash flow, and that's what's giving a rise in demand for our areas, for Sell Any Biz,
Yeah,
for White Knight Capital, for Transworld.
yeah,
Uh, that's what's making our expertise useful for these investors. So I think this is only going to grow as
yeah.
investors really stop having this old mindset of I keep my business from the start to the day that I passed on to my kids.
Yeah, and I think as real estate will cool off eventually, so there are very limited options to create wealth or invest, and then the industry is gonna grow again. People are gonna invest more in businesses than real estate because currently market is hot. So people are just comparing. Okay, if I invest in a real estate, I'm getting 6, 7 multiple ROI. If I invest in business, so how do you do the valuation of a business, by the way? So I would like to know your valuation method.
So we use mainly, I would say, two types of methods: either the EBITDA multiple, basically the exit multiple, or the discounted cash flow. That's for, let's say, companies that are 3 years old or more. But
Okay.
the smaller ones, for the startups, it's you obviously have to go with the revenue multiple rather than the EBITDA.
Okay. And how many multiples generally of
That depends
ROI?
on that depends on the sector.
Okay.
If it's brick and mortar, I like to stay between. Again, it depends on the sector, but
Yeah, yeah,
brick
of
and
course.
mortar
Just
generally,
as a rough
I'd say 3 to 5 multiples
three to
is
five
fair.
multiples.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you tackle a situation? I'll give you a test. A seller, you go and meet a seller. A seller is, let's say, a restaurant. He's losing 100,000 a year, and 2 years, 3 years, no money made. He's busy or whatever, and he's asking you a valuation of 2 million dirham. So how would you tackle such high expectation of ROI based on, oh yeah, I've spent this much of money, I've lost this much of money, but the business has a great potential. I can do it because of I have so and so issue, but the new buyer can extract the value, but that's why I want 2 million. So how do you educate such sellers that the valuation is not based on how much you lost or how much you need to relocate yourself to Canada? And so basically, the small business owner, they calculate a valuation. Okay, I'm going moving to Canada. I need this much for a house. I need that's why I'm going to sell my business for
Yeah.
this. So how do you tackle such situations?
So I actually had to tackle such a situation a few months back.
Yeah.
um, it
Right.
started with basically, as you said, my business has potential, and
Hmm.
it did have potential, but it wasn't
Yeah.
achieving it. So, in terms of branding, in terms of, let's say, aesthetics, and in
Yeah.
terms of product as well, it's just that the operations and the sales and marketing weren't doing so well. Those were the areas where it needed improvement. So, there were two things we discussed. The first thing was finding a strategic buyer that can add to the operations and the sales and marketing. It had to fit into their portfolio. Otherwise, it made no sense. That
Yeah.
might add your valuation a little bit, but again, it can't be by a ridiculous amount
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that doesn't work. So what happened was we found a few strategic buyers, but they still thought that the valuation was too high. We were honest with the seller, and
Yeah.
the valuation kept going down, kept going down. The issue is when you keep reducing the valuation, then the buyer, even if they're interested and they know what the opportunity is,
Yeah. They'll back off. They'll think something is wrong.
They'll back up. Yes, 100%. They'll think something is wrong, and they'll say that this doesn't make sense. These guys didn't value their company right from the beginning. It shows a bit of lack of expertise. So at White Knight Capital and Transworld, both, we like to tell the seller from the get-go, look, this is the multiple you should be looking at. We know the business. You can run your business, but valuating your business is something else. And this is what we do.
Yeah.
That's why we're not real estate brokers. We actually do our homework and we know what it's worth. This is what we can sell it at. Now, if this
Yeah.
doesn't work for you, then we we
Yeah, in
we
any
wasted your
case,
time.
yeah, when the percentage of businesses actually get sold is low, so having an unrealistic valuation is even make it close to impossible. So what I've learned over the period of time, I think as brokers, I don't know if you will agree with me. So I mean, I don't think it's the quantity of the listings you have; it's the quality of the listings that matters most if you want to be a successful business consultant or a broker. That I think the quality, when I say quality, means how good documentation you have, how accurate the valuation is, how motivated the seller is, how responsive the seller is in terms of negotiating, because it takes a lot to sell a business from a seller side. If the seller is not giving an input, it's just a waste of time. I don't know, what's your point of view?
No, 100%. I completely
Yeah.
agree. I think having the right documentation, the right data room,
Yeah.
I think we have a role in that as well, making sure that they at least present it in the right way. They might have all the documents, but we actually have a role in managing that process, and at least at least until the market doesn't need us to do so. But that could be still down the line.
Yeah, right. So I can talk more about it, more and more. We have so many things, but I have to wrap up um, uh, now. So tell me how someone can get in touch with you if someone is listening to this podcast and they want to connect with you. What are your contact details?
So I'm very reachable on LinkedIn. As you said, we need to utilize social media. I can be reached directly. Should I, I think I can tell you the link if you'd like, but maybe sharing it would be better.
Yeah, we'll share in the caption. So Glory will probably add your website and all the links in our caption. So anybody who wants to connect with Basil, looking for advice or buying or selling business, feel free to do so. So today we're signing off. See you till next episode. Thank you.